Hey guys and girls, my name is Alan and welcome to today's gameplay commentary. So, continuing what I've been doing over the past weeks and months, well, I guess it's an ongoing struggle, but basically I've been cleaning out hard drive space on my PC and I came across this old piece of gameplay, as you could tell from the rank that I'm currently in this match. And basically there were quite a few decent clips in here, so I thought instead of just cutting out extended clips, which they would have been, on the whole it's actually quite a decent piece of gameplay, so I thought I'd keep it as a whole video and do a gameplay commentary over it. To be honest, I mean, I could use a more up-to-date piece of gameplay, but sometimes it's just nice to go back in time and just see how I used to play. I've been watching back, as I say, quite a few matches from a long time ago now. I don't know how long this is. I think it's not quite a year, but it's quite long. It's quite old. And basically, I'm just watching back a few games, and every now and then I'll see something and I'll be shouting at myself because I know I'm doing the wrong thing, or at least I could probably handle the situation a bit differently, which I guess continues on from what I was talking about in a video I think last week now. Basically I was talking about how if you watch back gameplays, you learn stuff because obviously you see where things went wrong and you see where things went right, and obviously, you know, as you pick these tips up and you can just improve your performance in the next match and so on and so forth. So I mean, it's something I do anyway, as I said, for clips, but it is useful. And just because these gameplays are so old, I'm watching it back and I'm seeing how my personal playstyle has changed over the course of the year. And you know, just in general, Uncharted 4 multiplayer has changed quite a bit over the year. So things like Plunder have changed from a 4v4 to a 5v5. Now, 4v4 in theory was quite good because it was really intense, and if the teams were balanced, you could have some really good games. However, if the teams were lopsided, like one team had like a couple of bad players and the other team had like a party of 4, and they were not necessarily great, but they were all equal skill, then that match was really one-sided and it's very hard to win in pubs. And then also things like if a player doesn't join, so it's a 4v3, or if a player gets disconnected and it's a 4v3, it's very hard to win those sort of situations. And even if you manage to hold off attacks and things like that, over the course of time, you know, when you get like dodgy respawns and stuff like that, the enemy team are going to score, and it doesn't really matter how much of a good fight you manage to put up, because at the end of the day, when you play objective game types, it's all about the numbers. The more numbers you have, the more likely you are to win. And it doesn't matter if they're really good players or really bad players, it's the same situation. There's a reason why people say the numbers advantage, because that's what it comes down to. The more players you've got, the more people playing the objective, and in this case the more people potentially carrying and scoring the idol. So yeah, it's just one of those sort of things. So I'm kind of glad they changed it. I mean, I was a bit annoyed at the time because there were some matches where I did really well, but then all these games I've been watching back recently have reminded me how bad it was when it was a 4v3, or when someone dropped, or when someone wasn't replaced, or when a game started lopsided, or maybe when we had a couple of bad players on our team. So yeah, I think it was a change for the better. It's always sort of made me laugh, the whole 5-a-side thing. I don't really know why they picked 5-a-side. Most games, well, I mean, okay, I came into Uncharted having played Call of Duty quite a lot, and it was always 6v6, and then Ground War was like 12v12. No, it wasn't. It was 9v9. And then in other games like Battlefield, obviously you got 12v12 for 24, and then you've got 16 versus 16 for 32, and so forth. So, but obviously those games are different, and the maps are huge in Battlefield, so you could put 100 players into the match and it would still not feel that busy. It depends on where everyone's sort of heading at the same time. Anyway, so at the start of the video you sort of see me just straight in the match, and the reason why that is because I'm assuming my Elgato crashed or it stopped working, or maybe I just forgot to record at the time. But basically I always check to make sure that it actually is recording, because it's been crashing on and off recently. Well, it's been ongoing for a little bit now, and I could replace it, but it is still working for the most part, so until it fully stops working I won't replace it, because it's not a cheap piece of kit. But anyway, so yeah, so that's why the game suddenly started. It was right at the start of the match though. I noticed that it wasn't recording, so I just started recording. It was like 11 minutes 45 seconds, so you hadn't missed anything. It was just the intro bit, which I'd like to put in because it shows you my loadout and everything, but I did show that anyway. And I did show the scoreboard as well, so you know who's playing from the start and obviously what my loadout is. Now, what I'm using is the P90 with a silencer, and my chosen sidekick is the Hunter, and I've named this class the Hunter class because basically it's a class where I can either flank the enemy team, like I'm doing at the moment, and in some situations I would call the choker in to give me a bit of backup, and I'll follow him around, or her, depending on what side I'm on, and just take out enemies from behind and sort of mess up the flow of the enemy team, because it's something that can be done really well, and especially when it's such small numbers like this. Like if the choker grabs one, I down another player, that's 2 out of action already, and then it's 4v2 at that point, assuming none of my team are down. It can be useful, and I guess in some ways it's a bit of a risky move, because obviously if the enemy team are really good and they're watching their 6, then you know they can take out your Hunter, and then you've wasted your money, and also they can take you out because you're on your own. So worst case scenario, it could be the enemy team turning around, taking out your Joker and immediately taking you out, and then it's a 4v3 in favour of them because they've taken me out, and I've wasted a hunter, which hasn't really got me anything. And I don't know if you saw just then, but unfortunately one of the players on our team is quite noobish. They grabbed the idol, started going towards the enemy's chest, and then realised their mistake and spun around. But in a competitive, intense match, mistakes like that can cost you. Split second here, split second there, all adds up. At the end of the day, all you need to do is cap the idol, and to cap the idol takes, what, 2 seconds, maybe less than that. If someone's making a decision, even if it costs a few seconds here and there, ultimately that could cost you a cap at the other side of the field, because if it takes you 2 extra seconds to get to your chest, or to get to the enemy chest, then, you know, they could capture it, or you could fail to capture it. And again, another example there, that player got downed, which is fine, it happens, but they stayed in the open, and then as I went to revive them, they actually moved further into the open towards the enemies. So worst case scenario there, it could have been both of us down, and that would have just been horrendous. In addition to, obviously, you know, your gameplay changing over the course of a year, well, again, in my situation, I've sort of honed my playing style over the year and improved some of my decision making, especially when it comes to certain objective game types. Things like new weapons and new boosters have sort of changed the way that I approach the game as well, and some of them have really helped. Things like Harden, Lock and Load, really useful. And then to a lesser extent, some of the new mystical things like the Shield of Asgard, which I don't really use, but when other players use it, it really throws me because I don't really anticipate them using that. It's quite expensive to bring along. It's like 5 loadout points, and it's quite situational, but if used well by a good player, they can do some work. And as I said, sometimes it throws me just because I'm not expecting it. You know, you can sort of deal with an Eldorado, you can deal with the Chintamani Stone, but when someone randomly uses the Shield of Asgard, I'm sort of like, oh, what do I do? And then I realise I need to duck and take some cover, because I'm not going to be able to take them out in one clip. Well, unless they're really bad, but that's rarely the case. In my experience, it's usually good players that use the Shield of Asgard, so always, well, for me anyway, it's always a case of be very wary when someone pops it, because they usually know what they're doing, otherwise they wouldn't have brought it. One of the things I really appreciate about Uncharted 4 multiplayer is that they've added so much more content for free. Now, they easily could have charged for these weapons as DLC packs and things like that. I wouldn't have bought them, I would have missed out. And there are plenty of companies out there that do that sort of thing, like Call of Duty, for instance, is just one big example. But the fact that they've added all this new content for free for everyone to unlock, and yeah, you don't get it straight away because you need to buy using relics, and relics are capped at 10k, which is really stupid, yada yada yada. But you know, you have the opportunity to buy it, and you don't have to spend any real money. You just have to grind a little bit, which is fine if you enjoy the game. And I guess if you don't enjoy the game, it kind of sucks. But I mean, there are other games out there to play if you don't enjoy Uncharted. So it's good that they're giving away this stuff essentially for free, even though, as I said, there is a grind process involved. But it just keeps the game fresh, you know, because you've got all these new weapons to try out, and some of them have become new favourites. For example, the P90. There wasn't really a good SMG when I first started playing. I was using the machine pistols, so I used those quite a lot. And then obviously the SMGs came out, and I started using them. They became my new favourites. Same with the assault rifles. A lot of my early games were AK-47, HS-39 footage, but now it's like the Type 95, and I've also got M4 and just, you know, a variety of different weapons which I wouldn't have otherwise have got. So I suppose in some ways, if they hadn't released all this new content, and especially free of charge, that's the key point to note here, is that the game would have got very stale for me very early on, because I probably would have got bored, and more than likely I would have stopped playing a lot sooner. So the fact they've added all this new content, as I said, just keeps the game fresh, keeps you interested, and of course whenever they do a new DLC drop, it gets you excited and the community's happy, looking forward to something new to try out. And you don't get that a lot. The last game that I properly experienced the same sort of thing was with Mass Effect 3. And for some reason, BioWare, I won't talk about it in this video, but they just changed that working model practice and made it into something that's completely boring and rubbish. And there's so many things wrong with that game, but changing the way that they release content was a really big thing. So I genuinely don't understand what they've done with that game. And it's on the way out, quite frankly. I don't know if there's many people playing it at all, especially when there are so many other big titles currently out and coming out, such as Destiny 2, for example. Alright, so just before this video comes to an end, I want to quickly mention the video I posted last week. I don't know if you've seen it yet. I did a top 10 tips video for Uncharted 4 Survival Arena, and I guess it covers stages as well. It's not a video that I've done before, so it's my first time making that sort of thing. So I'd really appreciate it if you check it out, give me some constructive feedback. I'll link it on the screen now, I'll also link it in the description. If you enjoyed Uncharted Survival and you want to pick up a few more pointers, or maybe just, you know, just to join in the conversation of what you think the top 10 tips should be. And obviously I put something at number 1 and you might disagree or whatever. So yeah, head on over there and check it out and let me know obviously what your thoughts are. I'd really appreciate some feedback, as I said, because it's my first time making that sort of thing. Right, so as you can see, the match has come to an end. Unfortunately, even though we put up a really good fight, we did lose 3-1. Really kind of sucky because we did lose a good player sort of halfway through, and I don't know whether they dropped out because of a disconnect or maybe they just couldn't be asked to play anymore and they left. But it was a really close game up until that point. I think it was 1-1, and then we got a replacement who, I don't know, sort of didn't do a lot of work, as you can tell from the score. It's not my intention to highlight people who don't perform. That's not what I do. That's not my style. But I mean, the results kind of speak for themselves. Look at the work that I did, and then the second place player versus the last two on our team, and then obviously the opposite team as well. And you know, in this sort of situation, it's basically a 4v2 because the other two aren't really doing a lot. And I know one joined late, so you could be argued that he didn't have a lot of time to make an impression on the game. But the other guy was there from the start, and well, I mean, the results speak for themselves. So it sucks that that's the way it ended because I did really well, as you can see, 29-3. And as I was saying earlier in the gameplay commentary, this is one of the examples that I was referring to. Really, is that sometimes you need more players in the match just because then that one player who isn't so good or isn't pulling their weight doesn't have so much of an impact on the result. But it is what it is, and they've changed it now. And obviously, I still get these sort of frustrating matches, but slightly less so because of the changes they've made. So yeah, anyway. As per usual, if you enjoyed the content, consider tapping the like button. I really do appreciate it. And if you've got any thoughts you'd like to share with me regarding anything I've talked about today, I mean, what's been the biggest change for you over the course of the year playing Uncharted 4, if you're still playing, of course, let me know in the comment section below. But until next time, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, take care, and I will see you later.